Violence erupts in Portland amid alt-right, anti-fascist rallies. Portland, Oregon. For days, Portland has served as ground zero for American hate, heroism and healing. Today, it served as America's battleground. What started Sunday as two counter-demonstrations outside City Hall between anti-fascist protesters and members of the alt-right during a Trump free speech rally, evolved into an impromptu march and standoff with police. As police began closing off Chapman Square, where the anti-fascists had staged their protest, at around 3:45 p.m., officers lobbed loud explosives in the protesters' direction. It's unclear whether they were concussion or tear gas grenades, but there was a yellow smoke emanating from some of them. At least 5 explosions were heard as police pushed people back from that square. Portland police said the explosives were in response to projectiles thrown at its officers. Following the release of the explosives, hundreds of the anti-fascist protesters and others started an impromptu march, heading northbound from City Hall and pouring into major roadways open to traffic. The protesters were held up by police at 4th Avenue and Morrison Street in downtown Portland, where officers arrested some and pushed others with batons. Police fired non-lethal rounds at protesters hiding in a parking garage near the intersection. Shortly after, a chemical substance was released from the spot police fired, burning and stinging marchers' lungs and noses. It wasn't immediately clear whether police fired chemical rounds, but the department tweeted that coughing in the crowd was caused by an unknown substance, possibly from parking garage, and not released by police. Police released a photo on their Twitter account. The police say they seized knives, construction tools and bits of bricks from protesters. The day's crowds thinned and moved away from the park by 5:30 p.m., though pockets of protesters stopped on side streets to argue. Gibson was seen leaving with a few others, followed closely by about 24 protesters chanting, "Get out," and waving goodbye. Overall, it appeared that the war Portland was gearing up for wasn't going to happen. Police successfully dispersed many of the crowds and kept them under control, and both sides seemed content to stay relatively peaceful. But as early as 10:30 a.m. Sunday, it didn't feel that way. The self-proclaimed anti-fascist and alt-right groups had occupied the parks surrounding City Hall, shoving each other and screaming until police showed up. Local and state officers, riot police and the Department of Homeland Security held the line, leaving each side to hurl insults at one another across the street for most of the day. HuffPost reporters witnessed several scattered arrests made for disorderly conduct. A third crowd, the largest, of local liberals protesting the Trump supporters sat outside City Hall. Fights in Portland. Just a week after known white supremacist Joseph Christian allegedly slashed 2 men to death while screaming anti-Islamic hate at 2 teenaged women on a train. Feel surprising and excessive to outsiders. But locals saw this coming a mile away. This is a city with a white terror crisis and a storied history of racist confrontation. Sunday was a flashpoint in a decades-old fight.